guys, T here from the depot, bringing you another how-to video on things you can do to make Run 8 more realistic for yourself. Today's topic will be of great interest to those of you who like working in the yards, engine houses, and on locals. Cutting in locomotives, cutting them out, changing ends, and performing a locomotive brake test on a consist. Now, two things before we begin. We're going to be using rules and methods that I use on NS. CSX, BNSF, and UP may do things differently than NS does, so bear that in mind. Also, some features that are used to cut in and cut out locomotives do not exist in the sim. Cutting in and cutting out the automatic brake handle and setting the independent brake to lead or trail is also not a current feature of Run 8, so we'll substitute things where we can. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we begin, we need to set up a key binding on the rail driver and or your keyboard. There's a command called Change Control RV in both keyboard and rail driver lists. Set that command to any key that would be comfortable for you. What this key will do is it will allow you to change the controlling unit without ever having to leave the cab. You can switch to another unit, push that button, and it'll automatically give control of that unit, and that'll be essential to what we're going to do here in a few minutes. If you don't want to mess with that and do it the old way, where you get out of the cab, click the unit, and hit set as lead unit, that's fine too. You can leave it alone. Either way will work. Okay, here we've got a couple SD40s coupled up and ready to go. First thing we're going to do is set up the automatic handle to full service. Once that sets up, the needle stops. We'll drop out of the cab. We'll climb into the new leader. Now you can go about the old way. Go outside and click the engine and click the set as lead unit, or you can click the push the new control RV button. And when you do this, in the upper left-hand corner, the controlling unit now changes, and you hear the air running as it's setting itself up. You'll see the main reservoir needle move, and some circuit breaker switches will move as well. So now you've effectively cut in the new leader and cut out the old one, as well as set their independent brakes for lead and trail respectively. Cutting a unit in and out means you've changed the air brake setting for that unit. Cutting it out of a consist means you now have no control over the brakes. In the real world, you'd set the automatic to the handle off position, but because we don't have that setting in Run 8, I just set the units to full service and let that suffice. Now with the unit cut in, we can release the automatic and complete the cutting in process. Okay, now I'm in the cab of an ES44, and I'm going to show you this process because the screen's a little different, and it shows you a little extra piece of information when it's in trail. So we're pretty much set up the way we are right now. We'll go ahead and just we'll set the automatic to full service. Alright, gauges have quit. We'll drop down, go to our trailer. Whoops. That's what happens when they're too close together. Okay, now you'll notice here on your MFD it shows reverser MU. This unit is in trail. Now this isn't how real units look when they're in trail, but this is how the sim distinguishes it, so we're going to go with it. You can see the brake pipe shows 65. So you know that there's been a reduction made, and the equalizing reservoir wouldn't show anything either because it's also cut out. But the MU in the sim indicates that it is indeed cut out. So we have the automatic applied to full service. We'll go ahead and hit the button and or leave the cab and hit set as lead unit, and you'll see there's the air. Some circuit breakers just changed. The MU went away, reverser shows neutral, and in the upper left corner, controlling unit is now CSX5264, so you know it occurred. So same thing, pretty much, just double check your switches, make sure it's set for short hood lead and everything, and go ahead and release it. And we'll consider that all cut in. So the EMDs are the same way. The EMDs will also show MU under their reverser indication. So you have, unlike the SD40s, you have an actual indication of what status the engine is set to. So, you know, you can go about it either way. So that's how it looks like both ways. I'm not going to show you the aces because, like I said, it looks the same way, but that's how it looks with those. So we'll go ahead and jump into the brake test. Okay, now it's time to perform a locomotive brake test. A locomotive brake test is essential when you've changed ends in the consist. This ensures that all of the brakes are working properly after cutting out a control stand and cutting in a new one. Make sure everything is working together, brakes are applying and releasing. And there are two ways to perform this test. You can either perform it on the gauges within the cab, which is done when you just change ends of a consist and don't actually change the locomotives in the consist itself, or you have to perform a brake test from the ground, which is what you do when you've either added a unit to a consist or you've removed a unit that wasn't the trailing unit, the farthest most unit back in the consist. So first we'll do this one from the cab since we just changed ends normally. So we'll go ahead and look into that first. If you haven't already done it, go ahead and release the automatic. I've come to find that to pass a brake test to run 8, the brakes need to be released for a little bit. And we've been sitting there for a good while, so it should be all right. So after a minute or so, go ahead and release the independent brake and make sure your needle drops completely. Now we'll go ahead and make a 20 psi reduction on the automatic brake. So we'll follow the far left white needle over here. We'll get it down to 70 pounds. So here she comes. Okay, there's our application. You see the middle red needle moving. That is your brake cylinder. Those are your locomotive brakes, and they are applying. So that's a good application of the automatic brake. Now we're going to bail off. There's a good bail. That's released. Sometimes with running, you got to make sure it's down all the way. And it is. Okay, that's a good bail. Now here we go with further reduction, so we'll go deeper, set the automatic to full service. You see your brake cylinder moving again. That means you're getting a further reduction of the automatic, and the brakes are applying. Go ahead and release the automatic. Everything's showing released. And a full independent application. All the way to 72 psi. That's a good application. That's a good brake test. Now, one thing guys do after they've performed their brake test, they'll check the revs on the engine. So if you're on the ground, just to make sure that things have worked properly, you can go ahead and give the engine a couple notches here to make sure everything is working properly. And it appears we are. Both engines are revving up, so back to idle. And that's it. That's a good brake test from the gauges in the cab. Now we'll do one from the ground using the train graph. Okay, now that we're on the ground next to the locomotives, we'll bring up our train graph with left shift B, and you'll see the two E's pop up. Those are our locomotives in the consist. We'll go ahead and repeat the same process before, and this time we're going to watch the graph to simulate the movement of the brake cylinder on the trucks. So we'll go ahead and release the independent. So you're getting a release. Okay, full release. Now, to get to your 20 pounds, we'll have to go back and we'll have to watch the equalizing reservoir, the ER, up there at the top corner. So we'll go ahead and draw it down to 70 pounds. We'll go back to the graph, and the colors are changing so you can see the brakes are applying. So go ahead and let those apply a little bit, and then we'll bail. Takes a couple little hits. There we go. That was a good application. That was a good bail off. See, this happens sometimes too. They'll reapply if you don't do it late enough. Just give it a second there. Just get a full bail. So that we'll get a good... Come on. Okay, there we go. Wow, that took a long time. Okay, here comes the further reduction on the automatic. Just push the hand a little more. Alright, that's a good further reduction. We'll release the automatic. Good release. Independent apply. And independent release. And that's how you perform a brake test from the ground. Like I said before, a brake test from the ground using the train graph to simulate the brake cylinders on the engines is used when you add a unit to the consist or you remove a unit other than the last unit in the consist. So if we had 3 units here and we took the 8079 out and then put them back together, you'd have to do a brake test from the ground. If we were just to take the 8079 out, if it was the middle unit or the last unit, excuse me, and set it out, it'd be fine the way it is. We just double back into the train and go. So there you have it. That is a visual brake test from the ground. We did the one on the gauges. We cut in and out with the ES40 DC and also with these SD40s. And as per usual, this isn't a requirement for anything done on the depot servers. It's just something you can do to make Run 8 more realistic as you go about a daily switching duty, or you're setting power up in the engine house, putting a train together. Get all your engines together and brake test them. It's all part of making sure everything's set up. But like I said, it's not a requirement. Just do what you normally do if you don't want to do it, or you don't have time to do it, or whatever. I do these brake tests when I hop on a local for the first time. Like if I'm here at Moncrief, which is where we're at today doing this, I'll do a quick brake test before I get the train together and everything. Just kind of brings yourself into the immersion of starting the day and making sure the engines are all ready to go, and you're going to get the train together and head out and work the local for a couple hours. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Learned something new here. I believe the next thing we're going to do is me and Mark Voigt, MJV. We're going to work on a video about setting up remote control units and how to simulate using a remote control unit and establishing a remote zone for the units. We use them at Waycross a lot. We use them here at Moncrief a lot. Sometimes they get used at Barstow. So I think that's going to be our next one. We're going to get together and get a good remote control class together, get an RCO class set up. So show you how it's done. So appreciate you guys watching it. Take care, have fun out there.